go. So, hey, we are here for another episode of Athletic Mindset uh, podcast. And actually, today I'm going to talk about running. That used to be one of my favorite sports. At some point, I was a long distance runner myself for 10 years. So it's kind of somewhere deep in my heart still. And I can relate to this. I can relate to running being a meditative thing to do as well. I can relate to living and dying during a marathon and finding new ways of living a life. So today we are mostly talking about marathons and running and whatever else is coming up. So welcome, JP.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it and I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, and tell us also like where you are coming from right now. You're like on the other side of the world, that I know, but tell everybody else as well.
Yeah, so I'm in Toronto, Canada, and I've been here kind of my whole life. And I'm a mindset coach. And yeah, I'm really happy to talk about this journey that I just went on through the marathon.
Mm-hmm. I was listening to your own podcast where you were telling this story how you once went to a gym with, okay, you had this thing in mind, okay, I'm just gonna walk 5 minutes on a treadmill. I don't really want to. I can barely like even walk, but I want to do it. And you ended up actually running 45 minutes. So 5 minute walk that you didn't want to do ended up being like a 45-minute run. How did this happen? And where did it lead you later?
Yeah, so I guess I was dropped my daughter off at preschool and I was going past the gym and I was like, well, I can't really walk today. I'm really sore.
Mm,
And I said, if I just go in, 5 minutes walking is better than anything. I wanted to run, but I knew I couldn't. So I just went on the treadmill. And I guess a couple minutes into it, I started like meditating. I was actually doing the 6 phase meditation and something magical happened and I just disappeared. And if you looked at a camera, you would see me on the treadmill, but I was not there. And for
mm,
me, that's the first time I ever had one of these mind body experiences, like out of body, where wow, life is totally different and it's not exactly how it seems.
mm. So wow, you were actually doing 6 phase meditation on a treadmill. So how is it different doing it like in a normal setting compared to doing it on a treadmill?
Yeah, I guess it's probably not the safest thing, so we're not going to advise anybody to do this, but it
Did
worked.
you close your eyes like meditating or?
No, I do it. I was doing it with my eyes open.
Mm,
And one thing I actually noticed is like the part with compassion is my heart rate started to go down when I started sending compassion and love to other people, which I thought was
mm.
fascinating. I don't know if we can measure this over more than just me, but that seemed fascinating to me.
That sounds like a cool experiment. Put people on treadmills, have them do the meditation, and then let's see how the heart rate is going down or up, and how the speed might also be changing. It's like how much energy they have. It would be a cool experiment. Would you consider that kind of experiment?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a good way. I think even without the treadmill, just sending compassion and to other people and
Mm-hmm.
focusing on other people and that love, it changes our own physiology.
Mm. Yeah, for the better.
Oh yeah. And
So,
so the idea was that I was running. I have a bunch of aphorisms, but one is definitely go low, go slow. And the idea is that
mm,
things stack, right? So you start with 1 minute at a minute
mhm.
every day. So somebody who doesn't walk or anything like that, if you just start with a minute and add a minute every day, after a month, you'll be at half an hour. And
Yeah,
so
it's true.
yeah, so that's how I was on the treadmill. But my thing at the time was I didn't know enough about rest. So I was just
Mm.
adding a minute running and I would have started like 25 minutes and then I got up to like 45 that day.
Okay, okay. So yeah, but actually all these minutes add up. So I have had a client like for almost 10 months already. So we started in August with hollow body coaching. And at first she came to me, she was like, okay, I don't train at all, but I want to start moving just a little bit. And in the beginning, I just told her, okay, just do 1 minute. And I told her to buy these very small, tiny kettlebells, like 2 kilos. They're like super tiny. And I was like, okay, if you don't want to have like very strict plan or some kind of routine, just I don't know, play around with this for 1 minute. Just do whatever. Just use your creativity, because she's also like someone like who's very creative, and she doesn't want to be put into like a box. So she was just playing around, experimenting. And we had like this table in Notion, and it was also calculating all her training minutes. So at first it was okay, 1 minute, 2 minutes, maybe 1, 2, 3. And the first 100 minutes, that took a long time, but now it's like 1,500, because at some point she was okay. One is easy, 5 is easy. I can do 10. I can do 25. So at some point she was already doing like 30 minutes, and she was already like looking for or her own like trainings from YouTube. I'm like, okay, we started with one. One was hard, but now it's like building the habit,
That's
like
what it
with
is. It's
you.
a habit. Yeah. And it's,
Yeah.
you just go low, go slow. It starts to stack and then it becomes easy, right? At the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
it is like, say, a marathon, 3 or 4 hours. It seems like, what? You want to run for that long straight? But then
Yeah.
you don't start with 3 hours. You start with a little bit. I used to coach a sport many people might not know about called Gaelic football. It's just Irish football. And I used to
Mm.
coach a ladies team. And the beginning of the season, we would come into the season and some girls would be fit, but most people, we got long winters, I think like you do too, lots of
Mm-hmm.
snow. And so everybody's out of shape. And we would start with 5 minutes at the beginning of the season, just jogging as a team around the track. And we would do
Mm.
40 seconds jog, 20 seconds sprint, 40. And some girls would be like, I can't do that. And they would do it
Mm.
anyway. But I would add 1 minute each practice. And then by the end of the season, when it was time to tune up for the playoffs and championships, we would be up to like 22 minutes. And I remember
Mm.
girls like crying, saying, I hated you all summer, but now I'm
Aw.
so great. Yeah, so grateful, right? Because they didn't think they could do it. And that's just being stuck in your head, right? It's real easy to
Mm.
like, we all know your brain wants to keep you safe. But like you mentioned earlier, the neuroplasticity effect where you just keep doing it and you put your body in the same place every day and it becomes a
Mm.
habit. And then your body just goes there and does it anyway. And it's not a big deal.
Mm. And this is also like some kind of sport that you also play at some point, the Gaelic football, I think.
Yeah, I don't play it anymore, but yeah, I'm a little old for it now. But when I was younger, I used to play. I played on Team Canada and went to the World
Mm.
Cup for Team Canada and got to represent my country, which was a really cool experience.
Yeah, considering that Canada is like a very big country, I think being like a national team is like, wow, that's very cool.
Yeah, it was really special. It was they took care of us like top class and
Oh,
5-star hotels and everything, right? So it was
yeah,
awesome. We got to go to Ireland for a week and everything was done and taken care of and it was a beautiful
yeah.
experience.
I think it's like it doesn't matter of, like what kind of sport it is, but I have always like thought, okay, I would like and love to represent my own country. I haven't done it yet, but I have it in mind. It's like every time when I come like back from some kind of trip and I arrive in airport, sometimes they greet these athletes arriving from some world championships and so on, and there are like cameras, there are flowers. And I'm like, okay, I want to be this athlete arriving from a competition from abroad, and I want to be greeted like this. It's like, oh, it seems like a
Yeah.
very nice thing to do. And
Yeah,
it's
I know
like,
even when the Olympics happen, we see that at the airport, just people saying goodbye to the athletes, welcoming them back home every time the Olympics happens.
yeah, it's beautiful. I think sport is so, so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but back to this running, I know that you also ran a marathon quite recently. So, did this 45 minutes, was this like also preparation for your own marathon?
Yeah, so but sometimes in life we can look back afterwards and notice, hey, that was actually happening the whole time and I didn't realize. And maybe that might have been one part of it. Another thing, I remember going to a concert with my mom and sister one time, and it was like a Sunday afternoon, and we had to cross over a marathon right downtown Toronto.
Hmm.
And I remember seeing the guys running by and being like, man, that would be so cool to do that. And up until then, I
Hmm.
never ever thought of it. But gradually, I guess when COVID came, I knew I needed to have a plan for my body, mind, spirit.
Hmm.
I already kind of had one, but I started walking every day, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
it was like a 5 kilometer loop, and
Mm-hmm.
I would started walking it. Then I would add in running for like the last half kilometer, then the full kilometer,
Mm.
and just like go low, go slow. I kept stacking it up, and then eventually I could run the whole circuit. And then that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
big enough, so I made it a bigger loop, and then bigger and bigger and bigger. And then last year, September 11th, I ran a half marathon, and it was the weirdest thing.
Wow.
I just decided like 3 weeks before, hey, I'm gonna do this. I just saw it pop up in an email or something, and I was like, hey, why not? So I did it, and then um, I remember someone saying after, so what's next? A full marathon? And I was like, no, it can't be next. You can't just go from 21 to 42. You got to go to 25, 30, and that's what was next. And then this year, my plan coming into the year was to train for a marathon. So in
Mm.
January, I started like walking in the snow, cold. And the idea
Mm.
in January was just to get on my feet for 2 hours straight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then February, going in and out of the gym, some outside, some inside, but putting in those sprints that you have to do as well in the gym. March, we turned it up with those long runs. I know you know all about the
Mm.
long runs, and
Yeah,
that was a
these are
little bit
very
of
important.
torture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was torture. And then in April, man. So when we're talking about go low, go slow, at the end of March, the furthest I ever ran was 22.5. No, it was 20. And then
Mm.
in in April, between the beginning of April and the marathon was May 6th. I did 22 and a half, 25, 28, 32, 42, 42, which is insane to think you
So
could
you
do
did
all
like
that.
already before marathon, you ran the distance.
Yeah, let me tell you that. That's a
Wow.
really cool story. This is
Wow.
yeah, this is where intention comes in. So the day I was supposed to do, it was my final block and the final long run, and it was going to be 37. And so I just set out. I said, I wasn't trying to do it at speed or anything like that. I was just
Mm-hmm.
going. And I did like a 5 kilometer warm up, went back to my car, got some liquid.
Mm-hmm.
And then this girl passed by me. She had a hydration vest. And I was like, man, she must be an endurance runner. So I kind of caught up to her on the trail. We
Mm.
started talking. And she said, yeah, I've ran like 22 marathons and today I'm doing 28 kilometers. And I was
Oh
like,
wow.
wow, God put this lady right beside me at that exact moment
Mm-hmm.
because because the universe probably figured that there's no way that I'm going to be able to do that. So I ended up running with her. We were talking and it
Mm-hmm.
was nothing. It flowed and the time went past. And
Mm.
when she finished her 28, I still had another 10 left. And um, I walked the last five, but the idea
Mm.
was to get 42 on my body, and so that my body could download that and know what 42 felt like. And it took about 4 hours and 45 minutes, but it was
Mm.
okay.
That's actually interesting that because most athletes don't run a marathon before a marathon.
Yeah,
Actually, I think the longest distance is maybe 33, 30 that I did like before a marathon, especially the last weeks before a marathon. I was always like, especially the very last one, I was barely running because I was just saving energy for the race. And like
yeah.
the last 2 weeks, it was like I don't know, the volume of running was going down, 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 down. And it's like you're just preserving energy for the actual run. So it's so interesting to hear that you had like kind of a different approach. So how did you get to this idea that you have to have it in your body before the actual race?
So the fastest, or the I guess Elliot Kipchoge, the Kenyan marathoner, he broke a
Mm-hmm.
2 hour mark, and he was saying how there was a couple reasons, but he said how when the Kenyan guys show up at the marathon, they're already winning 1-0 before it even starts. And part of that is because they train at altitude, but another part is because in their long runs, they actually do the whole distance. And I know what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying. All the marathon training plans, I looked at various plans and they all kind of say, yeah, stop at 32, 35,
Mm-hmm.
37. And that was what I was kind of thinking I was going to do. But when I was there, I was like, you know what? Let's just do it and finish it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I also took a 3 week taper afterwards. So I was like, okay, I can rest
Mm-hmm.
for a bit.
Okay, okay. So you did actually rest like before the marathon? Okay, yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Because usually it's like people don't run the entire distance before the race. They just, do the training because the race day, I think especially for me, it was always like different. And it's like even if you have never run that kind of distance before, the race day it has like different kind of energy. You have all this, energy and drinking stations like every few kilometers. You have all the people around. Your adrenaline is high up. You are prepared. You're mentally and physically prepared, especially if you really rested before the marathon. And usually, I know I didn't do it, but I remember like the last day before marathon, it was like eating, and it's mostly like eating, you know, like pizza, white rice, pasta, carbs. So it's like an
Yeah.
eating festival before the marathon. Now I'm like, oh wow, that's a lot of food. That's a lot of carbs. That's a lot of sugar. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a catch. I think the science is starting to change and become more fat adapted, but the idea of carb loading, just for anyone who doesn't know, is that you have enough glycogen in your liver to
Mhm.
carry you for about 90 minutes, maybe. And so you want to
Yeah.
top that up with pasta, rice. But then now there's some new primal endurance, Mark Sissons. There's a bunch of them, but trying to change it towards more fat adapted, where
Mm-hmm.
if you become totally fat adapted, you don't need those carbs as much, unless you're trying to go for power and speed. But
Mm-hmm.
at the idea is that with the fat adaptation is that you can, what does he call it, metabolic, I forget what he calls it, but the idea is that you could kind of
I
run for
think
4 to 5 days.
metabolic flexibility maybe.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Because right now I'm like also like eating more fat and protein. I wouldn't do that kind of carb loading anymore because it sounds like no, I don't want to do this to my body. And as far as I remember from my marathon days, the day before the actual race, it was like everybody got together and it was like crazy eating. And the reason why I actually also switched to bodybuilding was I wanted to have like a cleaner diet. I didn't want to be around people who are like, oh, I can eat these 10 candies because I will burn them off. I'm like, no, maybe you burn them off, but what about all these additives in this candy? What about all this, I don't know, coloring, whatever? And maybe it's not the best fuel for your body. So it started to annoy me at some point, and I wanted to have like a cleaner diet. So I was okay, let's do bodybuilding. Everything in that diet has to be like very precise, very measured, very pure, clean, kind of. And it's not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna eat this candy because I'm gonna burn it off. I'm like, no, I don't want to be in this one. So I don't know. What did you eat? Where you when you were like preparing?
Yeah, no, it was rice for sure. And even the event organizers, they had like a big pasta dinner the night
Mm,
before. But I just did the rice. And I didn't eat like a lot. Like people are like carb loading, right? It's a thing. But the idea
yeah.
is that during the training, you're putting your body through those huge long runs and everything else, and your
Mm-hmm.
body's eating. And then once you do the taper, you're not doing the same training. So you don't actually need to eat more. You just kind of keep
Mm,
eating the same. But I'm curious now that you're talking about weight training. Do
mm-hmm.
you, and you're saying you do more fat, but do you do carbs or do people do carbs? Because it seems
People
like
do
that.
it. I think it's just me because I want to become more fat adapted and I want to like regulate my blood sugar levels better. So that's why I have reduced carbs and mostly, especially for breakfast, I mostly have like fat and protein. So I usually have like scrambled eggs, some avocado, maybe some bacon, and I don't eat carbs like the first thing in the morning. Whereas maybe runners are mostly, ooh, carbs. I do eat a
Yeah.
little bit of carbs, but not too much. I'm mostly focused on like eggs, meat, fish, dairy products like cheese, because I don't have any problem with dairy. And I'm also focused on like, yeah, okay, vegetables, of course. And maybe most of the carbs that I get come from fruit. That's like when I want carbs, I would just have fruit. Okay, in summer it's also ice cream, I have to admit.
I
Yeah,
love it. Yeah.
but I try to eat carbs like not the first thing of the day, during the day, like more like put them into the evening phase because it. Some people say also that if you eat the carbs more, like closer to the bedtime, you will have like a better sleep.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow. Those are good to know. These are very informative techniques. So, yeah.
yeah, it's like you have the fat and protein for breakfast. Lunch is maybe more balanced, and evening is more like carb loaded because it because carbs make you sleepy.
Oh yeah, the pasta
Yeah.
is like
It's like,
yeah.
yeah, so it's good to have them in the evening. And in the morning, you have like maybe more fat and protein, like eggs and avocado and bacon and whatever, cottage cheese, maybe little side salad, because this will fill you up for a long time. Your energy is like steadily increasing. So your blood sugar is also like steadily raising. And afterwards, it will drop also steadily, not like up and down like that that would happen if you had like very carb loaded, I don't know, cereal with some flavored sugary milk. That's like up and down, dropping. And I also think that the first thing in the morning, I don't want to like put my body under a lot of stress. I don't want to do like this, um, this roller coaster of blood sugar. I want to, okay, in the morning, just, stable rise, stable dropping, not like
Yeah.
because I think the body also needs some time to wake up properly.
I usually fast and then I'll probably right around midday I'll have a smoothie, like you said, with avocado, some berries,
It's
banana.
also like fatty smoothie, and yeah. I also fast. I do intermittent fasting, so um, I usually stop eating like 7 p.m. In the evening, and I start 9:30 a.m. So it's more kind of like 14 hours fasting window, and I wake up like maybe 5:30. So the moment when I eat, I have been up for 4 hours already. Body is up. I have done my meditation. I have done my morning exercises, maybe also the gym. So I'm already like alert, and then I have my breakfast.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, back to the running food. So how did you find all the food during the race? It's like, you have to learn how to eat on the go. It's like just grab something, then run forward, or did you stop? How did you do it?
It was probably the same just because I'm so used to fasting. Like my body,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not even hungry. So I don't know if coffee,
Mm.
I drink coffee, so I don't know if that counts, but um, just gels, right? So on race day, actually leading up to the race, now that you say that, I was eating like an English muffin with peanut butter
Mm.
just in the morning. Maybe those long run days only.
Mm-hmm.
And then same on the race day. I didn't want to change too much. And then you take those energy gels and they're like, wow, it's like just
Mm.
like boom, explosive power. It's like gasoline or something. Just boom, makes you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. It's like go during a
Yeah,
race. That's not completely normal, but yeah, your blood sugar is going like this, but it's going straight into the muscles, and you're using it like right away, so it's fine. You're not
right.
just gonna sit down and sleep on this energy gel.
And then how about afterwards? For me, I was just not hungry. I ate like a banana, but I just wasn't hungry. And I remember my family who
Yeah,
was they were
yeah,
there. We went to a restaurant. They're getting mad. They're like, "You got to eat." I'm like, "I'm not hungry."
yeah. I finished like 20 marathons back in the
Whoa.
day, and yeah, and I quit like three. But usually after the race, like maybe even 2 hours, I was like, I don't want to see the food. Just no, just give me water. Give me lots and lots of water. I want to hydrate. But food is like, no, no, I don't
Yeah.
want it. It's like it becomes kind of like repulsive. And I think at some point I was eating, and I usually wanted something like protein rich, like some proper warm meal. But yeah, this is also the time when you can eat a little bit more of this crappy food, like some sweets and stuff. But it's a kind of reward. But I always felt better when I was eating like properly. And actually in Tallinn, where I ran like most of my marathons, like 10 of them, so half, they usually have like a special area for the marathon runners, the finishers, where you can like get food. There are like some salads, some sweet stuff. It's not like very high quality. There are maybe also some wraps, some pancakes. So it's kind of
Yeah.
okay. But I usually just took the food, put it into my bag, and left because I just didn't want to eat. And actually, they also like gave out some beer after the finish line. I never wanted
Yeah.
like alcohol after the marathon, and I don't drink at all. But I know that some people like it because they say it's relaxing you. But it's also like okay, I'm not very sure about this because I also know that if your body has like alcohol in it, this is like the main priority for the body to get rid of the alcohol to get it out of your system, and it's not focusing on your recovery processes. If
Right.
this is like your one and only marathon of the season, okay, it doesn't matter. But maybe if you're like a competitive runner, like I was, and you have like a next race coming in a 1 month or so, or some other race, then you want to go as fast into recovery as possible. Then it would like be important not to drink alcohol right after the marathon.
Yeah.
But it depends.
Yeah, when I did that marathon, they gave like a little bag. They had a beer in the bag, a can of beer for everyone. And I was like,
Mm,
what's that all about? And then what one guy
mm.
was telling me is just because it's calories. So you can just stuff calories back in very fast.
Yeah, but it's also like alcohol because when you put alcohol in there, the body will first handle the alcohol and then, digest the rest. So it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, I gave mine away. I don't want a beer. I just ran a marathon.
Yeah, yeah. But it depends. Some people like, oh yeah, I ran a marathon. Now it's time for a reward. It's time for big cake,
Right.
a little bit of beer, and fries and everything. But yeah, it's different. So how did you feel like mentally after the marathon?
I've been watching. So one of my big philosophies is what we focus on expands. So the whole
Mm-hmm.
time I was training, any free time I had, I was consuming like media, like watching videos, and all my downtime, I was just learning as much as I can. And so I
Mm-hmm.
learned one thing was just don't stop, right? You see everyone
Mm.
run, they finish the line and then they fall
Mm-hmm.
over. So I just kept
Oh
going. Yeah, I felt good. I didn't stretch too much because it seems like it's not really the right time to stretch because your body's already ripped apart a little bit. But
yeah.
yeah, no, I felt really good. I was definitely proud of myself because it's
Mm-hmm.
something I didn't think I could do, right? And so
Mm.
anytime we can push ourselves beyond our limits of what we think we're capable of,
Mm-hmm.
that's when we expand. And that's definitely our soul's purpose here is to expand.
But even when you like already tried running the 42 kilometers during practice, we were still like surprised that you could do it at the actual race.
A little bit because the first time I did 37 and I walked the last five. So
Mm.
and I wasn't going at speed, right? During the
Mm-hmm.
race, it's like much faster. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was a part around 17 kilometers where my brain started or my mind was telling me you don't have to finish, you can't finish. I felt a little
Oh,
pull in my leg, right? And
okay.
my this game was going on in my head talking for like I don't know 5 kilometers maybe saying like yeah you don't have to finish, you already did the
Mm.
42, you have nothing to prove to yourself or anybody,
Mm-hmm.
um whatever, right? And then I just switched it off and I was like that's
Okay.
all the mindset, that's the practice, the habit stacking, go low go slow, and
Mm-hmm.
just knowing that okay this is my brain trying to keep me small, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
want to do it because probably it's uncomfortable and it's like I've been pushing it so hard and my brain's just telling me that to stop because it will feel safer. So knowing that,
Okay.
I was able to just switch it off and say, man, this is not what I trained for. I have
Oh,
to.
okay. So it's also like a mental game. So it's that's what this podcast is about, being having this athlete mindset. So you actually had this, did have this devil on your shoulder for some point, and it's very normal during a marathon because it's such a long distance, it's such a long time to be on the road, and it's so normal to have all these voices. Oh, I don't want to do it. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I don't want to. Oh, what the hell am I doing? Why? When is it over? So you actually managed to switch. So is it because you
Yeah.
have like a strong mind and you have like practiced some mindfulness and done some exercises like you said you do the meditation 6 phase for example.
Yeah, 100%. It's a bunch of things. So it's that. It's also just understanding the way the brain works.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and understanding too that like nobody ever dies in a marathon. Some people
Mm,
have died afterwards, but your body won't let you keep going until you die. So the body will
yeah.
shut itself down and it will stop you. I think one of the books I read was called Endurance,
Mm-hmm.
or it was called Endure, but he was talking about this and almost a part of that book. Seals, when a seal goes to jump in the water, they put heart rate monitors around the seal,
Mm-hmm.
and before they actually jump in the water, their heart rate drops like 10 points, and it's
Mm,
like even the seal knows that it's going to go there. it's like a protection mechanism, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
we have these kind of mechanisms inside us. So yeah, it's definitely training. It's knowing that the voice is there. I get it. It's there to protect me. But it's funny,
Mm-hmm.
like you say, that I like the way you call it the devil on the shoulder, because it is
Yeah.
that. And if you listen to your voice, whatever it says, if you start saying the opposite, your voice, so it's like, no, I can't do it. Yes, I can. No, I
Mm.
can't do it. Yes, I can. You'll either
Mm.
silence the doubts, but if you switch it around and say it the opposite way, you could take the opposite and your brain will start arguing the other way against you.
I was usually doing it. Okay, I can go for another 5 minutes. I can go to the next corner. So I was like, and when I reached the next corner, or when 5 minutes have passed, okay, I can do another five, another, and oh, okay, finish line. I'm saved.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
just
was,
like writing a book, right? Like
yeah,
you can't
just bit
write the
by bit.
entire book.
Yeah,
Yeah, chip away at it.
and also like sometimes in training when I had long runs, I was okay. Today I had a long run. Okay, maybe I had, I don't know, 30 kilometers. I was okay. 1 kilometer is 3.3% of the total. So I was always calculating in my head. And during the action marathon, I was also calculating in my head. Okay, 5% is 2.1 kilometers. So 1.05 is like 2.5%. I was like, I had like crazy mathematics going on in my head during the marathon. I'm not very like mathematic person, but it's still like
Yeah, I
I'm
did the
just what
same thing.
it's like finding ways to convince yourself. Okay, I did
I'm a
like okay
third of
one
the way.
percent, 2%. Okay, I can go a little bit more. Whew, halfway there, little bit more, little bit more. It's like you're continuously convincing yourself to do a little bit more, and then suddenly, oh, it's over. Oh, new personal best. Nice.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like, okay, 5 kilometers, we're an eighth of a way, or 10 kilometers, we're a quarter of the way there. And
Yes.
that same game. Ours was on the road it was cut in half by pylons. So traffic was still going on the other side.
Mm.
And and so I was doing exactly what you're saying. I was like, man, I don't know how far I can go, but I'll
Mm-hmm.
just keep going one pylon at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about that is when you look back, you realize real quick, oh, I'm moving, I'm making
Yeah,
progress, even if it
yeah,
doesn't feel like it.
yeah. That's good.
Yeah, it's so
So,
exciting.
so what else did you learn from your marathon?
Oh wow, I got a whole list of a bunch of things.
Oh
So
wow! So it's a good experience if you have a whole list.
yeah, okay, my like I said, my philosophies are what we focus on expands,
Mm-hmm.
and your story is your superpower.
Mm-hmm.
And so my idea was like, okay, let's use the marathon to prove this. And so where you put your attention, energy flows where your
Mm-hmm.
attention goes. And so yeah, go low, go slow, show up the starting line, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's a different start point for everybody, but
Yeah.
start where you are, do what you can, use what you got, and just chip away at it. Go low, go slow is probably the best one, because
Mm.
you don't have to be able to run 42 kilometers today. You just have to be able to run for 2 minutes, and then you can add a minute, and eventually you'll get there. But there's
Mm-hmm.
a bunch. Knowledge is power. I think we are talking about the hyponatremia off camera, but a
Mm-hmm.
girl died in the Boston Marathon, and she thought she was hydrating the whole time. She was drinking water, and she was
Mm.
full of water. And because she didn't have the sodium or the salt or the electrolytes,
Yeah.
she the water wasn't staying in properly. She was just
Yeah. Yeah.
and so knowledge is power. Work hard in silence and let your success be the noise. My sister said, "Oh, you're so lucky you could do a marathon." And I'm like, "You have no idea." Like I've been getting up
Mm.
early in the morning and putting in the work every day and eating
Mm.
right, sleeping right, and you got to do the work, but work hard in silence and let your success be the noise. And the one thing was huge was make it up in advance. And this is the same as life.
Mm.
It doesn't matter what tragedy is happening to you or where you are, you can
Mm-hmm.
start right now and you can create a future, and you slowly
Mm-hmm.
chip away at it and then you get there. So marathon was that, right? You make it up in advance. And back to knowledge is power. Things like carbon plated shoes that allow you to recover quicker and give you a little more
Mm-hmm.
bounce. It's worth paying the extra money to get those kind of shoes. And then obviously, yeah, gels, these kind of things. Showing up even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't
Mm.
feel like it. That's a
Yeah.
big one.
Yeah. If you show up when you don't feel like it, for example, when you have like a bad training day, it actually you feel so much better afterwards because you still showed up on the bad day. you did it. So it's like, if you can do this, you can do anything, kind of.
I believe it. And I think like you said, those are the ones that they make it even more, right? Like if you feel good, yeah, that's okay. But when you don't feel good and you don't feel like it and you
Mm-hmm.
still do it, not only you feel better afterwards, but those are the ones that compound. And so
Yeah.
consistency is key.
Mm-hmm. It's like a huge win if you show up on a bad day. So I don't have like training motivation every day for gym, for example, but it's so ingrained into my being, into my identity. I just go. I don't have to decide if I want to go. I'm just okay. I'm just going. I'm just doing it. And I think motivation is actually kind of like a mood, and moods come and go, they pass. But if you just go, you do your thing, you will gain motivation on the way while you're like doing your training, for example. And
Yeah.
afterwards, you feel like, oh, yes, I did it. And okay, now I have energy for anything and I feel so much better. So I think like sometimes you need to use some willpower and some discipline to go have and use like your mental strength to go to the training, and afterwards you will feel so much better. So I think every training has this very huge mental aspect as well, because you just sometimes have to convince yourself to go, or like in the race you have to convince yourself, okay, little bit more, uh, okay, maybe until the next drinking station, okay, there's gonna be like some drinks and gels very soon, I can make it, I can make it. You have something to look forward to, kind of.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Jim Rohn is he was Tony Robbins' mentor, but he
Mm-hmm.
says like motivation will get you started, but habits is what keeps you going. And it's so
Yeah,
true. And
it
then
is.
another thing I learned was okay, so at the end of training block 3, I had to do 28 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
And I did 18. I didn't hydrate enough this day, but I did 18 and I was just like done. I'm like, I'm done.
Mm.
And so I went back home and I kind of just hydrated. I shower. And then I was like, man, if I stop today and I don't finish the last 10, then what's going to stop me next training block from giving up? Right. So I went
Mm.
back to the gym that day and I finished the other 10. But
Oh wow.
yeah. And so, but that kickstarted me to go like, okay, it's like belief in yourself, right? So I have
Mm-hmm.
an acronym I use called BIAS, and it's
Mm.
belief, intention, action, and surrender. And so,
Mm.
first thing you have to do is believe. Confucius said the man who says he can and the man who says he cannot are both correct. Henry
Yeah.
Ford said, whether you think you can, whether you think you can't, you're right. And so you
Mm-hmm.
have to believe in yourself. And you don't have to believe that you can do it right now, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to believe that you can start working towards it and that eventually you'll be able to do it. And it's not just marathon, this is life too. So first thing
Yeah.
is belief. Next is intention. You set your intention. What do you want? And if you can visualize and meditate with it, that's
Mm-hmm.
bringing you towards your attention. And then action, showing up. You have to show up. And the
Mm.
hardest one is surrender. That's definitely the hardest one because we
Yeah,
try to
because
control
we
it.
want to have control, right?
Yeah. Like I told you, I
Yeah.
think I wanted a 3 hour 10, right? But that
Ah,
wasn't that was probably a little too cocky and arrogant at the time for my
for the
level.
first one, yeah.
Yeah. I just saw it because that for my age group is to qualify for the Boston Marathon, and that seems to be the
Mm.
pinnacle. So
Yeah, Boston, New York, these are like the big ones, and Chicago, I think. And it's like you have to usually participate in a lottery to get there, or you just have to have like a special qualification time from a
yeah, I know
previous race.
Chicago's a lottery, but Boston's changed it where there's a certain
Mm.
time. And so,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I was on pace to do that time, but I went way too fast out of the starting gate. And so that's another one, right? You make a plan, but you have to
Mm-hmm.
surrender it. So I made a plan, but I didn't stick to it. And I knew that. I
Mm.
was telling myself at the very beginning, just first kilometer, make sure it's 5.5 minutes. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like 4:13. And I'm like, the next
Oh
two
wow.
kilometers, 4:08, 4:03, and then my heart rate was way up, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, I have done this. I have made this mistake many times. Like start too fast. I'm like, oh, it feels so good. Let's see how long I can last. And usually after 24, 25, it's like, oh, it's like
Oops.
it's at some point it's just okay. It's chill. I love it. La la la, fun. And suddenly, doof, And then you just suffer for an hour and a half, or like maybe the next 17 kilometers. It's like just dying. In the beginning, oh yeah, it's fine, it's fine. Oh, it's a little bit faster than I intended, but okay, let's see how far I can go. You know, you're gonna suffer, but I have done it many times. It's like, I know it's bad, but I still do it.
You have
At
some
least,
good marathon times, right? What are some of your times? Because your times are phenomenal.
my best one is 3:15.
Wow.
I tried to get the 3:10 at my last race, but I got like 3:22, and then I was like very disappointed. I was fed up with running because I had done it for 10 years, and after this, I switched to bodybuilding. I
And
was
you're
okay.
happier doing bodybuilding?
How long?
No, no, happier doing that.
Yes, it's. I think it's like cleaner diet. I like the body composition more. I like the shape more. I like to have like more of these muscles. So right now, when I'm looking at runners, I'm like, oh, they're all so skinny. And when I look at bodybuilders, I'm like, yes, I like this. I used to be a runner. I used to be
Yeah.
there, but now I'm like, oh, they are so tiny. I feel so big. Oh,
this
it's like
time, this time you just told me that's 4 minutes and 37 seconds, which is
mhm,
unbelievable to
yeah.
sustain that for 42 kilometers.
I think it's also adrenaline, and it was in April 2019. So I was in March. I was in a training camp in Portugal. So with my running club, we also used to go to training camps for maybe 2-3 weeks. So like training very hard. Then had like maybe 2 weeks rest, and then I ran the marathon in Milan, Italy, and I got my first like best time. So it's like
Nice.
I was also like training a little bit in the winter, of course, because runners they train like all year round anyway. But the training camp actually laid like the last foundation, and yeah, got me ready for the actual race.
Yeah, you just reminded me of another thing I learned, and we hear it all the time, especially in coaching, is slowing down to speed up. That's a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's
Yeah.
two ways I learned this. So one is the training blocks, right? You do every month you'll do a new training block. And
Mm-hmm.
so the first 3 weeks you train hard. The fourth week you kind of slow down and let your
Yeah,
body
it's like
take on
it's actually similar in bodybuilding. We also have like the deload weeks, so it is similar. And at some point, it was like, okay, when I had this deload easy week, it's like, oh yeah, maybe I should do more. But okay, let's
right.
just listen to the trainer. They know better. And you actually need this because after this easy week, you will have so much power to start again with the hard weeks. And the first three are like building up, and it will get hard anyway. So just enjoy the easy week as well, so you could have
Yeah.
like energy for the hard weeks. Actually,
Yeah. And your body needs it to take on those adaptations. And then the other thing I
yeah.
learned about slowing down to speed up was just heart rate training.
Mm,
They say like 80% of your training should be done at like a really slow jogging kind of pace,
mm-hmm.
which is so difficult for me. But this is the information coming from all the top marathoners in the world.
Yep.
And so I need to learn how to do that one because I'm definitely even like I'll tell myself, go slow, slow down, slow down.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like,
It's
no,
like at first it's hard because you're like, okay, I'm going so slow. That's not good. But when you keep doing these very slow runs and you're like checking your heart rate, you're not checking the speed, just the heart rate, then the speed will actually build up at some point. At first,
right,
it's like, okay, I'm super slow. Ah, I don't like it. I'm not improving. But it is actually important. And I have seen it like on other people as well, who ended up being like very successful runners. And they were also, some of them were also like middle distance runners, so like 800 meters on the track. So for them, they're like going super slow doing the recovery runs, super, super slow. And they could be like super fast on the track, but they also needed these very slow trainings, just the recovery. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
always
It's
trust the trainer and trust the knowledge, you know.
For sure. It's difficult for me, but because it feels like you're not doing anything, right? But then you
Mm-hmm.
hear guys like Elliot Kipchoge who ran a marathon in 2 hours and he's
Mm-hmm.
saying like this is a part of it. So yeah, trust the process. That's another one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there are so many components to the marathon training. It's like both physical, emotional, mental. You need this mental toughness kind of. So, which part did you actually find, I don't know, the most interesting? Like the physical or mental, or what stands out for you?
Yeah, I'm pretty mentally tough already.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a mobility scooter 5 years ago. I couldn't
Oh,
breathe, walk,
wow.
laugh, cough, sneeze. I have a tumor in my spine. And
Wow.
so I've developed that resilience. So that part, and learning from other people, that's a part that's difficult for most people, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of good with that. The physical, maybe the emotional part, because I'm out there and I don't know about you, but I'm like so gratitude and grateful. I'm
Mm.
like crying while I'm running.
Yeah, yeah. I have cried a lot during marathon starts and also after the finish line. It's like, so
Happy.
yeah, at some point it's like, okay, I'm fine. And then it's like, okay, maybe 2 minutes before the start, you just stand in the crowd. And yeah, in the last year, I was also standing quite in the front because I was running for the national championships. So I was like, okay, I'm here with the fast runners. I'm like very close to the start line. It's gonna start, and you feel like this emotion building up. And I have cried at the start. And I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful. I'm doing it. Oh, and then I finish. I'm like, yeah, it's so beautiful. I love it. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's happiness
Even in
tears.
training, just going in training, just I don't know. For me, it's gratitude. I'm a little feminine when it comes like that because yeah, I go in the early morning and watching the sun come
Mm,
up over the mountains, and it's just like,
mm,
man, I'm so grateful that I can do this, especially where
mm,
I came from like 5 years ago. So yeah.
mm. Yeah, this is especially like a success story if you really were like not even moving around and now you're like running marathons. So it's like everybody can do it. It doesn't matter like how low you have been. I think it's everybody can like rise up and go really up and do something extraordinary. Because I don't think like not everybody is doing marathons. Not everybody is taking on such challenges. And yeah, you're like a very good, inspiring example because you actually like you rose from the ashes, kind of.
Yeah, the Phoenix.
Yes. And I know
Yeah.
that you also have another race coming up very soon.
Yeah. So I did on so past Sunday, I just did a half marathon with a friend
Mm,
of mine. The guy drove, I feel bad. He drove for like 6.5 hours to come this way to do it. And the race organizer, something happened, but she had to cancel it. And so
mm,
we said, you know what, we're gonna do it anyway. So we met up,
mm,
we put it on, and so that marathon, that half marathon it's the starting point
mm-hmm,
to a full marathon in about 12 weeks, 10,
mm,
11 weeks. And
mm-hmm.
so yeah, I'm gonna go back to that same place where I did the one in spring, and this is the fall, and I will try to beat my time.
Okay.
I'm
So
not
I
gonna
would
say 310, but I'm definitely gonna my time in the first one was 356. So I'm gonna try to beat that.
okay, that's already pretty good for the first time. It's like
Thanks.
and so are you like doing something different this time while preparing, like mentally, physically?
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna do that heart rate training and go slower. And
Mm,
the idea, part of the idea with that is that the recovery will come quicker, which allows you to
mm-hmm,
do more. So one thing I know is like, and that was another lesson. You get what you put in, right? And
mm-hmm,
so I can honestly look at my time and I can say, okay, well, I deserve that time. I didn't deserve a
mm,
310. I didn't put in the training. And so the volume that you need, right? It's about putting on the kilometers. And
mm-hmm,
oh, it just wasn't, I didn't deserve that time. I didn't put in enough work. So now I know a lot more. And one thing for sure is I'm just going to let everyone go at first. So part
mm,
of what happened is that half marathon or that full marathon. A lot of people at the starting line, they put the half marathon and full marathon together. So these
mm,
guys are out running the half marathon and I'm trying to keep up with them. And then, yeah, I learned my lesson. So definitely, I think one guy said, and I should try this, is the first kilometer, just breathe only through your nose. And so I'm going to try
mm.
that. But
Okay.
yeah,
It's
and
like
we
I think
learned
it
lots of lessons.
yeah, I think it's important to keep to your own pace and to stick to your plan. I know that some races they also like have these special bracelets. So for example, if you want to run like 3:30, you will have this bracelet on your wrist. And there are like these kilometer times, like, okay, at this point, I should have done like 1, 2, 3 kilometers. So you can, keep track.
Yeah.
And I think in many bigger races, they also have the pacers, so like pacemakers who have like balloons, like
Yes.
4 hours, 3:45. And if you follow the balloons, they are like sticking to a very like stable pace. So
Yeah.
it's always a
That's
good
what it
idea to
was.
stick to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Last year they did have those pace bunnies, they call them. And
Mm.
I, they didn't have them this year, but I was kind of like, that was my goal. I'm just going to stick to the guy who's at 3 hours, 10 minutes and see what
Wow.
happens. But yeah, I think another thing too is kind of just telling your mind to shut up, right? Turning it off like
Mm.
a switch. And so
Mm-hmm.
knowing that like, yeah, we can just go more. And that's the thing too, I learned is like you can do way more than you think you can, right? Everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, we got a lot of lessons that we're going to implement and we learn, and that's part
Mm.
of life, right? The beauty of the marathon is that it's so many, like I have at least 25 lessons that are the similar to life, right?
Wow. And you can actually, you said in the beginning that you're also like a mindset coach. I also using these lessons as examples when you're like working with your clients. It
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
have to be like related to sport, but I think you can also apply them to life in general.
Yeah, it's important, right? Because again, knowledge is power. But if we can take our own example, like the one I just was saying about how I you get what you put in,
Mm-hmm.
that's perfect that I did
Mm-hmm.
356. Of course I want to do 310, right? But
Mm-hmm.
356 is a good because it's a lesson for me, but I can share it with my tribe, my community, my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, if you do the work, like you have to do the work. There's no way around it, right?
Yeah, you
And
can
same
tell
with
them
the
your story. It's like it's such a good example. It's like you're racing like the phoenix and doing the marathon. It's like, okay, if you can do it, you can always encourage people. Okay, you can also do everything. If you just want, you can do whatever you want.
right.
So I
And you
think
know
it's
this because you ran 20 marathons, so you know
yeah,
all about it. What are your
yeah.
lessons? Some lessons you learned from marathon?
Mm, I I think it's mostly on the physical scale that I learned. Okay, I have to stick to the plan, and it's like, okay, don't rush in the beginning because you will regret this after like the first half. And I also learned that it is a very much a mental game, and it's very much about convincing myself to just keep going because at some point it will be over. It was like, okay, the faster I got, the easier it actually got, because my first one was like 4.5 hours, kind of 4:27, and fastest was like more than 1 hour faster. So you have like 1 hour less suffering kind of, and it is faster pace, but the body is also more used to it. So I also learned that I can prepare myself to the faster speeds as well, and if I'm like well prepared, it's gonna go well. But I also did quit like 3 marathons because I was sick at one point, and another marathon it was like too hot, and it was in Krakow, Poland, and it was like maybe 30 degrees, and so okay, there's no point to continue because I won't get like a good time, and after this I will be disappointed, and I just quit, and I decided, okay, let's just keep training for the next one. And for me, as I was competitive runner and I was like chasing the time, it's also like sometimes you have to know when it's clever to quit and not go to the finish line, because if you do finish, at that time I did like 26 kilometers, a little bit more than a half, so it counted like a long workout. So
Yeah.
sometimes it is a good idea to quit because if I did like the full marathon, the recovery time would be so much longer, and I couldn't like be ready for next races. So I quit and just recovered and did some other races. So it's always
Yeah.
also like knowing when to give up and just let it go and start preparing for the next ones. So I think these are like my biggest lessons. So
Yeah, for sure. My parents used to play this song when I was a kid, Kenny Rogers, and it said, "You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them."
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, because the injuries are, it happens, right? It's just a part of it. So if you kept pushing that day, yeah, maybe you finished, you're not getting the time you're looking for,
hmm
but then you could get hurt, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Recovery
It's
is
like
huge. It's a big part of it.
Yeah,
sleep.
especially when you're like very competitive, it's sometimes it's better to quit. You see, okay, this is not the best day. Let's just step aside and next time, because there's always a next time. You can run like until very late in your life. It's like,
Yeah, I just saw a guy. There's a lady actually. She won her age group, 90 to 95-year old.
wow, was he like the only person in the age group?
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
another one, a guy, I think he was 88. He just finished on
Mm.
Iron Man. I was like,
Oh, so
whoa.
it is
It took,
possible.
yeah, it took him like 12 hours, but still, who cares, right?
Yeah, yeah. If you're still alive and still moving, and you have the courage to go to the starting line, it's like you already win, because you might also be like the only person in your age group because everyone else is sick, dead, or like not brave enough. So I think it's already like a very big thing to do it at an old age.
Yeah. Hey, what are some mindset differences you've noticed between marathon and working out or bikini fitness as an athlete? Is that what it's called?
Mm. Yeah, it's bodybuilding, bikini fitness. I think okay, maybe it's not like a mindset difference, but okay, maybe it is about nutrition. So in running, it's a lot about okay, I'm just gonna eat everything because I burn it off. But in bodybuilding, there's like more focus on quality and what the foods actually do to your body, and it's more precise. So I think there's like more focus on tiny details, because you have to like sleep properly, eat properly, move. It's not just training. And I really like this shift, like being more in tune with yourself. And yeah, what's also different in bodybuilding, there are like less competitions actually. It's like one season, maybe autumn or spring. Whereas when it's long distance running, you usually start in the spring, then run the whole summer, and then summertime, October, November. So it's longer season. So I think in bodybuilding, I also need to set my mind to this one period. Like it's either like October, November, or like April, May. So I have to have like this very big focus during either spring or autumn, whereas in running it's like more spread out. So I think maybe it's a little bit harder also in bodybuilding, because you have this tinier block of time in which you have to succeed. So
Why
yeah,
is that? Because you're transforming your body so much?
yeah, it's like some people do it, but it's very hard to be like in a super competition shape like all year round. It's either half a year you're like building up, and then the second half you're like cutting the fat mass and getting clean and try for the competition. So it's not very healthy to be like super lean the whole year round. And then actually, when you look lean and competition ready, you don't actually have the strength, because you're like
Oh,
so
wow.
small. You maybe your brain is not working because the fat mass is very low, and it's like, yeah, it's a different kind of life. The
And is
runners
there
are
any
used
cardio? Any
a little
cardio
bit,
in that
yeah,
training?
yeah. I was adding cardio because my body needed it. But runners are like the same weight the whole year, basically. So they don't fluctuate that much. They have a high energy all the time, kind of. But in bodybuilding, you also have like these brain fog moments, because when the fat percentage is going down, you will get like brain fog, and there's like energy deficit. So it's like intentionally giving your body less energy than it needs. So like intentionally starving yourself actually. So for
Yeah.
this, you also need some other kind of mental muscle to keep at it. And it's in bodybuilding, there are like more times where when you have to say yes to yourself and no to other people, because it's just okay, I'm so tired, I can't go anywhere. I can just sit on this sofa and I can't even lift a hand because I'm
Yeah.
not tired. It's like the last month, and like, yeah. In running, it's, yeah, your energy level is more stable, the body weight kind of stays. So this is
That's a
also,
good lesson too. You say yes
yeah,
to yourself, right? These are lessons you
yeah,
can extrapolate into your own life to
kind of
say yes to yourself.
healthy selfishness, as a friend of mine said, who lived with me when I was competing the first year. And she was like, okay, I can see that this selfishness is actually healthy and it's good for you. And she actually also learned a lesson from this. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
So I have one more question, but before that, I just want to acknowledge you because I see what you're doing and you have so
Mm.
much contributions, not just here, but with writing and other things as well.
Hmm.
But so I want to acknowledge you for that. But the question would be, what inspired you to start this podcast?
So I'm switching into coaching, and I wanted, okay, I already have like a podcast in Estonian, which is about more like fitness and bodybuilding. I was like, okay, I would like to have a one in English, but maybe like a broader topic. And I always thought that, okay, there is something about the way athletes think. There's this mental game, and I think there's like very specific athletic mindset. So I wanted to explore how athletes think. It's like different sports, different areas where people are coming from. And I wanted to see, like, okay, maybe not even all athletes, but people who are doing sport. It's like what kind of mental strengths they need and how they train, like mentally as well. Because I think as a coach, I can actually help people who want to do something on the athletic field, maybe as an athlete, or also somebody wants to run the first marathon and they have like some mental blocks and challenges. So I have done all this, and I'm like very excited to know more how other people are thinking and what they're doing. So this is why I'm exploring this field, and I also love to talk to other people and to find out what they are doing, like all over the world. So this is like a very good opportunity. Like I could talk to you, for example, and hear a whole different kind of story.
Beautiful.
So
Thank you.
yeah. So okay, I think we are slowly wrapping up. But like you said, you're like a mindset coach. So where can people find you?
So the Next Steps Academy is the name of my company, and you
Hmm.
can just go to the nextstepsacademy.com. I also have a podcast called the Phase 4 Podcast.
Yeah,
You
it's a
can
good one.
find it on, thank you. You can find that on Spotify
Hmm.
and also on Instagram at the Phase 4, number 4
Hmm.
podcast.
I think the next steps, it's also like it's like a marathon. Take the next step and go on.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And for
is the
me,
name
just where
is
my
the name
story
any
came.
is it like connected to running in any way?
No, it started like, okay, now I'm having this wheelchair
Hmm.
mobility scooter. My whole life was shattered. I couldn't walk, breathe, cough. And
Hmm.
so it was like, what's the next step in my life?
Hmm.
And so it started there, but maybe that's why I ended up running, because it was like that.
Okay.
So
It was already in the name that you need to do it. You need to
yeah,
do some kind of sport that's connected to steps.
right.
So you
Yeah.
actually manifested this marathon to yourself.
Yeah. Can we manifest a sub 310 maybe in September?
Yeah, already you're very greedy. You want to have this three then, yeah. I think 3:30 first, and then let's say,
That's probably a better plan. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it's good to be greedy as well. You have like high goals, and next, okay, but I know once you do the three, then you're like, okay, can I run like under 3 hours?
Yeah, I was on pace for it. My first half was 134,
Oh,
and my
good, that's
second
good.
was the second half was 222.
Wow. So my best is like 1:30, so you're quite close to me already.
Wow.
So I could do 1:30 and 3:50 marathon, so I think you're close to 3 then. Kind of.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that from someone who's ran 20 marathons.
Yeah, in 10 years. So it's like a long time.
Wow.
But yeah, that's very exciting. I wish you all the best. And thank you so much for sharing your story. It's always very, very interesting to hear about it. And yeah, we'll listen to your podcast as well and keep in touch. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Celia. It's always great to talk to you.